Hey everyone, welcome back to Plainclothes Faith Everyday Discipleship. I'm Nick, and I'm really glad you're here with me today. We're stepping into episode 10, which is titled Strength to Finish the Race, Perseverance in the Christian Life. And this is a big one, because perseverance is something that every believer has to learn, no matter how long you've been following Jesus. Before we dive in, let's do a quick review of what we learned the last couple of weeks. In episode 8, we talked about the fellowship of faith, how community strengthens us. And then in episode 9, we looked at service, how serving others both shapes us and reveals Christ in us. Now we take the next step in the discipleship journey. How do we keep going? Not just in the good moments, but in the hard ones, the quiet ones, the draining ones, the ordinary ones. Because Christian life isn't a sprint, it's a long distance run. And that's why our theme verse today is so important. Let's take a look. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. And this is coming from the NASB translation. Let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and protector of our faith. And one of my favorite phrases is run with endurance. Not sprint, not speed, not talent, not perfection, but endurance. A.W. Tozer once put it, the man of God must walk alone, but he never walks without God, end quote. And that's what today is all about, learning how to keep walking with God or with Jesus through real life, real hardship, and real weariness. So today, we're going to look at 3 simple truths. The Christian life is a long race. Our strength comes from God and not from ourselves. Perseverance grows in ordinary, everyday moments. So let's begin with the Christian life as a long race. The author of Hebrews compares the Christian life to a race. Not a quick dash, but an endurance course. And here's the honest truth. Some days following Jesus feels hard. Some days you're tired. Some days you feel spiritually dry. Some days the Bible feels heavy instead of refreshing. Some days prayer feels like work. Some days you feel alone. And some days you wonder if anything's happening at all. But let's be honest. Perseverance isn't learned in the highlight moments. It's learned in the quiet, ordinary, invisible moments. In fact, C.S. Lewis once put it this way. Relying on God has to begin all over again, every day, as if nothing had yet been done. And that's real life. There are days at work where everything goes wrong. Long shifts, heavy workloads, difficult people, physical exhaustion. Days where you're praying under your breath, Lord, just help me get through this hour. And yes, sometimes that prayer can be a sarcastic one-off, but at the same time, it's a prayer. And there are mornings when you wake up and don't feel spiritually ready. You're tired, distracted, overwhelmed, and you're not sure how to face the day. And then there are personal battles, stress, loneliness, anxiety, pressure, spiritual warfare, the stuff that nobody else sees. That's where endurance is built. Oswald Chambers put it this way. Perseverance means more than endurance. It's endurance combined with absolute assurance. End quote. Assurance that God is still with you, assurance that He is still working, and assurance that even slow progress is still progress. The Christian race isn't about running fast. It's about not quitting. But in the midst of all that, there's good news. God never asked us to run this race on our own strength. Our strength comes from God, not from ourselves. God knows you're human. God knows you get tired. God knows you get overwhelmed. And He knows life will hit you hard. That's why the prophet Isaiah writes in Isaiah 40, 29, and 31, He gives strength to the weary, and to the one who lacks might, He increases power. Those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. Notice something. God never says try harder. He says wait on me. And this is why this particular scripture verse happens to be one of my most favorite scripture verses in the entire Bible. In fact, if I had to pick my life's theme verse, it is this Isaiah 40, 29, and 31. But he says, wait on me. Our strength comes from his word, his spirit, his presence, his people, and his promise. Not our burnout, not our resilience, not our internal grit. In fact, John Piper once put it, God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him, especially in suffering, end quote. Meaning, God meets us in our weakness, not after we've powered through. And let me be real for a moment. Endurance is learned in the daily grind. When you're forced to work a 14-hour day because the weather isn't cooperating or people have called out and you're frustrated, you're tired. You just want to go home and get warm again in the wintertime. You just want to go home and be with your family, be with your wife, be with your kids. But you should, you, in the midst of all that, you smile. You say, you know what? Let's do it. Let's get it done. Endurance also shows up when you show to work tired, when responsibilities keep piling up, when people need something from you and you're already drained. When I face a long day and I pray for strength, when you feel like you're going through the valley, you feel like God doesn't hear you, and you keep walking with him anyway, you keep trusting him anyway. Endurance is choosing obedience when you don't feel inspired. It's choosing faithfulness when you don't feel strong. It's choosing scripture when you feel distracted. It's choosing prayer when you feel empty. In fact, Jonathan Edwards put it this way: the way to heaven is ascending. We must be content to travel uphill. End quote. Endurance is uphill, but God walks it with you. And that leads us into something that is very important. Perseverance isn't just learned in the big struggles, it's formed in everyday life. Perseverance grows in those everyday moments. We often think that perseverance is only built in trials, big crises, major battles, intense suffering. But most endurance is formed in the daily, ordinary, nothing special moments. Getting up one more day, praying when you don't feel it, reading scripture when you're distracted, showing kindness when patience is thin, serving at church when you're tired, choosing joy at work, choosing faith during stress, saying, Lord, help me throughout the day, fighting off discouragement one thought at a time. Perseverance isn't dramatic, it's steady. It's simple faithfulness repeated over and over and over. In fact, Charles Spurgeon put it perfectly. By perseverance, the snail reached the ark. End quote. Some days you feel like a snail, and that's okay. God doesn't measure your speed, he measures your faithfulness. Practically, here are some everyday perseverance practices. Keep your eyes on Jesus, not your circumstances. Stay in the Word, even when you feel dry. Pray often, even short prayers. Stay close to your community. Serve someone, even in small ways. Rest when God gives rest. Do the next right thing, not the next impressive thing. Most of the Christian life is not explosive, it's cumulative. Tiny little steps of obedience, those tiny decisions of faith, tiny moments of trust that add up to maturity. So, in closing, let me ask you today, where do you feel tired? Where do you feel stretched? Where do you feel like you're running out of strength? Bring that place to Jesus. He never promised an easy race, but he promised to run it with you. Your challenge this week: practice everyday perseverance. Choose one small act of faithfulness each day and do it with your eye on Jesus. Read, pray, show love, forgive quickly, serve quietly, take one step and then another, because the God who called you to run will give you the strength to finish. And exciting. And next week, we're going to step into hearing God in the quiet. We'll talk about recognizing God's voice in scripture, prayer, circumstances, and the gentle whispers in the noise of life. I can't wait to walk through that with you. Thank you for joining me for Plainclothes Faith. If this episode encouraged you, share it, leave me a review, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, keep walking with Jesus. One word, one step, one day at a time.